Welcome to the Invoice Approvals and Accruals media demo. The purpose of this demo is to give you a brief overview of the functionality and features of Invoice Approvals and Accruals for Dynamics GP. Invoice Approvals and Accruals allows invoices to be sent for approval within a web browser. The approvers need not be GP users, but yet they can enter comments, change the GL coding, and see scanned invoice images, and then approve and reject the transaction as they see fit. This speeds up the approval process and reduces the amount of time spent looking for lost or missing paperwork. It also allows the finance department to have full visibility of all their invoices and the stage at which they are at within the approvals process. There's also full integration with document management solutions. Let's take a look at the software. We'll start by entering a payables transaction. You'll notice I'm using the standard GP window. We do not use alternative windows. We simply add functionality into GP using the additional toolbar or the extras toolbar on older versions of GP. So I've entered my transaction and then click on additional and on approvals. You'll see it's added an approver here for me, and that's because I'm using the enterprise version of Invoice Approvals and Accruals, where workflow rules allow the automatic addition of approvers based on features and fields within the transaction. So Sarah's going to be approving this invoice. So we'll save that and save the transaction. We now need to send it off for approval. So we have some emailing functionality where we can select the batch we'd like to send off for approval, and we could mark them all or select a few of them, and then we use the email button to integrate with our email and send out emails to every approver that needs to approve a transaction that's just been sent off. Each approver will only receive one email each time this process is run, no matter how many invoices they need to approve, so they won't be bombarded with multiple notifications if there's multiple invoices that they need to approve. This is an example email, and you can see there's a link to the web page in here, and also details of the transaction that needs to be approved. So I'm going to click on the link and log into the web page, and you can log in here using your Windows logon credentials should you wish to. Here's the overview page of the website. This is where your approvers will see their transactions. It shows a certain amount of information on this overview page, including whether a comment has been added or whether there's an image attached to that transaction. They can then use the document number here to drill down to more information regarding that transaction. So once drilled down, you can see things like the description, the PO number if one was entered, the GL coding, and you can click on that to update it should you wish to. Here we can edit a line or delete an existing line and add a new one. We can also add a comment onto a transaction if we wish to, and that will then be added onto the transaction notepad within GP and also added into our notepad at the bottom here. This contains a full audit trail of everything that's happened with our transaction, so when any GL code changes were made, and when any comments were added, and who added them and when they added them. We can then see the scanned image by clicking on the scanned image button, and we can approve and reject the transaction using the buttons down here, or return back to our list view where we started. We have some extra tabs up here, rejected for rejected documents. Maybe there's a problem that later gets resolved. If that's the case, you can come back here, find the transaction that was rejected, and approve it. Approved is for any transactions you've approved but not yet been posted on GP, so perhaps they're waiting other approvers' approval. And posted, when you approved a transaction and it's been posted within GP, it will appear within here, along with a tick or cross to say whether it's been paid or not. I'm going to take you now into Smart Lists. We've got some additional Smart Lists here specifically for invoice approvals. This top one that we're looking at now shows us invoice data and then some invoice approvals data at the end here. Total approvals is the total number of people assigned to approve the invoice. Then we've got approval status. List ID type, that's the way in which the invoice is working its way through the attached approvers. One of being that it's been sent to multiple people, but actually only one of them needs to approve it for it to be fully approved. Vertical being when it goes to the first person, and once they've approved it to the second, and so forth through the chain. And the third option is horizontal. That's where the invoice will be sent to all of the approvers at once, and it needs to be approved by all of them before it can be fully approved and posted. And then we see here whether a comment's been added or the GL coding's been changed, because those are things that your GP users may want to keep an eye on. From here we can use the Go To box. We can go back to the transaction entry window or the transaction inquiry window. We can also go to the list of approvers, so if we wanted to know who the 5 approvers on this transaction were, we click on approvers and it will show us those 5, the order in which it's working its way through those people, and whether they've approved it or not. We also at the bottom here have a link to the scanned image, or we have a link directly from the Go To box up here. So at any moment in time the GP users can see exactly where their invoice is within the approvals chain and whether it's fully approved or not. Once transactions are approved, obviously they need to be posted, and at this point we use the batch transfer window, because in here it shows us for each batch how many transactions there are, whether any are ready to be posted and therefore are ready for transfer into a posting batch, and if any are unapproved within that batch. So we can see here we've got a number of transactions that are ready to be posted. For example, this one here, these 4 transactions. So we select the batches that we'd like to pick up the approved transactions from. So for example, we'd like that 1 there and the 4 there, so we'll select those. We create a new batch, which will be our posting batch for today, and we hit transfer, and that will move all of the approved transactions that are ready for posting into our new batch, which will post, and any transactions that are still in the batches awaiting approval will stay there going through their approvals process. At the end of the month, when you've posted everything that you can possibly post, there's usually some invoices that are still awaiting approval, and that's where the accruals window comes in. So here we put in the period that we're working in, and it will give us the posting date and reversing date, and all of the transactions at the end of that period that are on the purchase ledger, not touching the general ledger. Here we can use the checkboxes to select which transactions we'd like to approve. We can use Mark All to select them all, or we can just tick and choose which ones manually. We then create a batch ID, which will be a GL batch, and when we hit Build Batch, it will create for us either one journal or one journal per transaction. It will create them as automatically reversing journals using the dates that we've got here and put them into the batch for us. So all we need to do to account for those liabilities that haven't yet hit the general ledger, to ensure that our reports are up to date and correct, is to then post our batch of accrual journals that we will have created within this window. So that's the end of the approval process. Your invoices at the end of the month are either posted or they're accrued. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch our demo of invoice approvals and accruals. And if you have any questions, we'd urge you to contact us. Or see our website, which is www.swareindex.com. There's a lot more functionality within the invoice approvals module that we haven't had time to show you today, and we'd love to do a live demo for you to explain the more intricate details of the module and how it might work for you. Thank you.